it's even worse than that. It's even worse than that, because the sin that Jesus was originally supposed to be redeeming was not only the sins of all mankind, it was specifically the sin of Adam. Adam never even existed. So Jesus was tortured and killed to redeem the sin of a non-existent, fictitious character.
Cool. Yep.
So, we certainly shouldn't get our morals from religion, and as a matter of fact, we don't get our morals from religion. If you think about the morality of anybody here, a 21st century human being, we have values and morals which label us as 21st century human beings. Our values and morals are typical of the 21st century. They are not typical of any particular religion, and they are very different from the values and morals that we would have had a century ago, or 2 centuries ago, or 3 centuries ago. 2 centuries ago, we would, most of us have believed in slavery. All of us would have believed in slavery except those that were slaves. Women didn't get the vote until the 1920s in this country and also in my own country. There is a shifting moral zeitgeist, a shifting set of values which labels the decade in which they come from. If you go back to the 19th century, if you go back to Charles Darwin himself, Charles Darwin was in the vanguard of religious opinion. Charles Darwin was a fervent opponent of slavery, and that was why he had one of his big fallings out with Captain Fitzroy on the Beagle. But even Darwin believed that the different races had different abilities, that white people were superior. Even T.H. Huxley, his friend, who was right in the front line of progressive liberal opinion, he was absolutely adamant that white people were superior to black people. Huxley and Darwin were men of the 19th century. They are labeled by the morals and values of the 19th century. You can almost tell in which decade of the 20th century a work of fiction was written by the morals and values that come out in the characters. So there is a very, very rapidly shifting moral zeitgeist which labels you as a member of the decade in which you find yourself, of the century in which you find yourself, and which clearly has nothing to do with religion. When the British Foundation, the Richard Dawkins Foundation in Britain, conducted a survey just a few months ago of those people who in the census in Britain ticked the Christian box, that number dropped from 72% to 54%, which is a very good sign. It was 72% in the 2001 census, and it's dropped to 54% now. But we took the 54% and asked them supplementary questions to see what they really did believe. And those 54% who self-identified as Christian, when they were asked, when you have a moral dilemma, when you have a moral question to ask, what is right and what is wrong, do you turn to religion? And only 10% of the 54% said they turned to religion. The majority said they turned to my innate sense of right and wrong, which is what we all do anyway. The bottom line is there really is no good, honest reason to believe in a god or gods of any kind, or indeed anything supernatural. I suspect that many people who think they're religious have not actually thought it through. If you think that you're religious, maybe you didn't realize how weak the arguments in favor of religion really are. Maybe you think you're religious, but you might realize when you think about it further that you're actually agnostic or even atheist. And I would urge you, when you meet somebody who claims to be religious, don't back away and say, oh, okay, you're religious, I won't argue with you because that's off limits. It should not be off limits. If somebody claims to be religious, then they are offering a worldview, they're claiming to believe in a worldview which should be challenged along with every other belief. So ask them what they really believe. If they say they're Roman Catholic, you say, you believe that when a priest blesses a wafer, it turns literally into the body of Jesus? You believe that, do you? Doesn't that seem a little gullible, a little credulous? I mean, do you have any real reason to believe that? What we don't want is to say, oh, I respect your belief because it's your private religious belief. So back away. Don't back away. Don't be aggressive, but don't back away. Ask them why they really believe it. Question it. Get them to defend it. Get them to realize that you can't just say, oh, it's my faith, as though that were a sufficient reason to believe something. It's not. The only reason to believe something is that you have evidence for it. I'm delighted to be speaking at this rally at Fort Bragg. I'm delighted that a barrier has been broken through, that there never again can be a religious rally on a military base without the authorities knowing that it will be followed by something like this. There's been a double standard. It seems that there has been a double standard in the US military which epitomizes another double standard which is in the country at large, and it has got to stop. Thank you very much.